My name is John Wagner. I'm the director of the Division of Bone Marrow Transplantation at the University of Minnesota. I've been in this field since the mid-1980s, and I see where we are today. My first thought that comes to my head is, I wish I was 20 years younger, because it's so much fun. There's so much things that we can do today that we couldn't do before. What really has changed the practice of transplant medicine, of cancer medicine, has been unraveling the human genome. We now better understand why a cancer is a cancer. It gives us clues as how you might respond to a particular treatment. It gives us clues as how we might develop a molecule that would inhibit the cancer from continuing to grow. It gives us a clue as to what specific proteins are on the surface of the cell that we can take immune cells to target and kill. But the other technologies that have occurred are big data. We're talking about millions of pieces of data on one tumor from one patient, and coming together to help us understand how we might be able to affect a change, whether it be prevention, treatment, cure, or simply diagnose. Pediatric cancer is relatively rare, and so it requires the entire world to work together to find cures for these various types of cancers in children. No longer are we the individual investigator working in an individual laboratory at the University of Minnesota alone. We're one great big laboratory. When we're working together, we can also find discoveries more quickly. My hope for the near future is to be able to take these immune therapies and stem cell therapies and to make it a first-line approach, and ultimately to replace chemotherapy. Because as more and more of these children survive into adulthood, we're seeing more complications. It's almost like premature aging, because of all the exposure to these chemotherapeutic drugs in the past. This can't be acceptable. And the tools that we have today, which never existed until today, now give us that hope that we can actually get rid of chemotherapy altogether. We talk about our successes and we talk about the future. What we don't do is we don't talk about the deaths. In this job of taking care of patients with cancer, it happens. And that's what compels us forward. This is still the most rewarding job in the whole world. But it can be tough. And it doesn't get easier. The Children's Cancer Research Fund allows me as a director to say, you know what? You have a good idea. Here's $100,000 today. Now prove the idea is worth it. It's what allows us to find the next new therapy more quickly. What keeps us motivated is to find a cure for cancer because of kids like Wyatt. They have a long life to lead. The science takes us in a direction that says we have now more hope than ever before. But we can only promise one thing, and that is we keep trying and that we'll learn from it. And the Children's Cancer Research Fund allows us to do just that.
My name's Wyatt and I'm 6 years old.
My kids are very, very energetic. There was one day in particular where Wyatt came to me and said, "Mom, I think I'm gonna lay down and take a nap." That is not normal for Wyatt. And I was like, "What's wrong, honey? Do you feel okay?" And he's like, "I'm just tired." And that became more frequent. And he had a really low-grade fever for 1 or 2 days and then would go away. And then it would come back. He had started complaining about pain in his legs. I really started to get concerned and just have a feeling like something really is off with Wyatt. I called the nurse line and she recommended I bring him in. So we came in the next day. Wyatt was wiped out. And when Dr. Cook came in the room, I could see visually he was a little taken aback. We do x-rays and he comes back in and he's like, "Okay, Mom, I want to show you this." And he said, "This side looks normal, but this side doesn't look the same as this side." And he said it could be an infection or it could be something growing there that doesn't belong there. And then he said, "I want you guys to go get an MRI today." I carried him from the car into the doctor's office, and then they had a little wagon there. And so he rode in a wagon. It's just starting to kind of come to me like, my little boy's really sick.
Today I can fly above the clouds into the sky, where I can see an infinite sunrise.
And the doctor, he sat down with me in a room, and that's when I first heard neuroblastoma. One of the tests that they do is called MIBG, and his whole scan lit up in his legs, throughout his abdomen, and into his chest cavity, and even on his skull. His little body was full of cancer. They said, don't go online and look at this because it'll scare you. And a lot of the numbers out there is from 10 years ago, and we're in a different spot right now because of research. They kind of had the gold standard of care of how they treat high-risk neuroblastoma. You have induction chemo and then stem cell transplant. And that's where Wyatt would get the really high doses of chemo to wipe him out, and then you get his own stem cells back. And there are a lot of side effects. It can affect their heart. It affects their hearing. It can affect kidneys and liver. It can affect their hormones and stunt growth. And they kind of tell you when you go in that we're gonna bring your child to the brink of death and then bring them back.
Oh, you can bring it all, the cavalry and cannonballs, because my dreams are stronger than these walls.
And so I did a lot of reading, not because I didn't trust his doctor or the hospital. I loved the team at Children's, but there's so much going on in neuroblastoma. There was talk about this hospital that doesn't do transplant. I was looking into Sloan Kettering and learning about what they do. Everything that they talk about on their webpage is about lessening the toxicity of the treatments. A big piece of it is immunotherapy, antibody treatment, and that's kind of what replaces the stem cell transplant. We went to Sloan in July, and Wyatt had surgery and a 6th round of chemo. And then I got the call that Wyatt was no evidence of disease, so that's NED. Then we could move on to antibody.
No, I am not afraid of anything today. No, I don't need this armor or this cage.
There was a group of parents who would talk to the lead researcher at Sloan. He came to them and said, I think I have something that would really be a game changer, but I don't have the funding for it. And they said, how much do you need? And they went out and had bake sales and fundraisers, and they raised $1 million for the research that made this antibody that Wyatt gets that's got no toxicity. These are the groups that are responsible for kids surviving, because there's groups like Children's Cancer Research Fund out there supporting us, and you don't have to do anything for them or with them. They're still gonna be out there supporting you.
And I am not alone, a soldier made of stone will follow me into the unknown. And
Believe me, when Wyatt is done with treatment, we are not done with pediatric cancer. Our lives will be dedicated to raising funds, volunteering, supporting whatever we can do.
oh, you can bring it all.
When I'm up at 2 a.m. with the blinking lights and my little guy hooked up, when you are in that dark spot, hope is the lifeboat.
'Cause my dreams are stronger than these walls.
He told me the other day, I can do anything because I beat cancer. And he's not done with treatment, and he's NED, but he knows that he's tough and he's strong, and I'm so proud of him, and I know that going forward, anything that he comes up on in life, he knows he can do it and he can tackle it. Yeah, you're doing good. You're gonna make it. You're gonna be all right.